What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pure Evil MMA. Happy New Year. Well, it's almost a New Year. It's New Year's Eve right now. We are on the 30th of December. It's about 1 p.m. here on the East Coast and geared up for UFC 219 tonight. It's going down, the last UFC event of the year, UFC 219, Chris Cyborg versus Holm. Now, the craziest thing about all of this is last year we had another female main card. We had Ronda Rousey when they were using she's back, which is like the biggest curse now, we understand. I've been pointing it out every time they've done it this year against Lyoto Machida. He's back. What happens there? Who else did they use that against? There were a couple people that made their returns this year and they used that. I was like, please don't use it again, because it is literally a curse in 2017. So this is the last event of the year. Holm has a chance to really seal herself as an unforgettable legend in the sport, where, you know, those 3 losses that she had after she beat Ronda Rousey when she became the champion, you know, she has a chance to wipe that slate clean, because now she's on the board with a win over Ronda Rousey, a girl who seemed unstoppable at the time. And then if she gets a win tonight at UFC 219, depending on how it happens, I mean, either way, even if it goes to a decision, I mean, Holly looks better in the 4th and 5th round. So we have a lot to talk about on today's show, and I'm thankful for everybody that has tuned in this year in 2017, because this is probably the last recording here on Pure Evil MMA, and it's been a great year. So I want to thank all of our listeners. Big thank you to Ann and Mike, who it is their anniversary. They've been listening to the show literally since day one. Shout out to Yusuf, shout out to Leslie, shout out to Pat, Andreas. A lot of people are having a rough week. I know the holidays can be really hard, specifically a little harder for people who are, you know, dealing with some losses in their life. So, you know, one thing I love about the sport, it's literally saved my life in so many different ways. And now that we get towards the end of the year, we can, you know, kind of unite under one roof and enjoy something that we all have in common, which in this case is mixed martial arts. So I always have a blast on Twitter, so make sure tonight you are following me on Twitter. If this is your first time watching Pure Evil MMA, you can follow me and ask me any questions that you want. You know, I'll be watching live, so I'll live tweet and follow that with a recap of UFC 219. So when it's all said and done, you can count on it, whether you're listening to it as a podcast, audio, or the video cast. Make sure to subscribe to iTunes, Podbean, and always on YouTube. But you can find it all the time at mymmanews.com. So I geared up. I got a little crazy around Christmas time. I had to give myself a little treat. As you guys can see here, I got a new webcam, I got a new microphone, got the studio all set up for everybody. So I'm ready for you. You know, well, I'm ready for this preview show, but I'm also ready for 2018. It seems weird saying 2018, but this year's really flown by, and we're gonna be doing the end of the year show. I didn't want to jump ahead. You see all these other shows jumping ahead, and you know, you don't know what's gonna happen tonight. UFC 219, and we learned it last year. There were so many other shows last year that went ahead and we're like, you know what, Ronda Rousey's probably gonna win. She's back. No one was giving Amanda a chance. In this case, no one's really giving Holly a chance. Well, I can't really say that in this case. I mean, Holly actually is pretty close. I see with like a lot of people voting online on Twitter or UFC.com, Tapology.com. Every poll I see, it's literally, you know, 55% maybe for Cyborg and 45 for Holly. So it's a little closer, but still two big contenders at 145 pounds, and it's questionable what is next if Holly does beat Chris Cyborg. Is it going to be, because there's no one really in that division, and it's especially what's next for Chris Cyborg if she gets past Holly Holm. Who else can you really match up to her? So we're going to be previewing that in just a second here. We have the year-end results for UFC Pick'em. Now, number one this year, completely all the way down 2017, was Iceman. I mean, first place throughout the entire year. Minion brought it to attention when we were looking at the overall stats. We were checking out like how well everybody did this year. And we're like, holy shit, Minion, you are number one in France. And if you've been a long-time listener to Pure Evil MMA, you know damn well who.
What's up, MMA fans? Minion McGonion here.
On Twitter, he's the guy that does our Members of the Week segment and also our UFC Pick'em. And what do you know? He wins Pick'em in France. So big congratulations to Minion. But tonight you guys have a chance to jump up the rankings. Really your last chance So I just want to thank all of our listeners that have tuned in throughout 2017, and you guys can count on the end of the year show. Depending on what happens tonight, this is why I put the brakes on it, but we have some special guests, some surprise guests. I'm going to try to get on Eddie Mercado. You guys remember him from Bloody Elbow. Me and Eddie have gone way back, covering fights like World Series of Fighting, and he was on last year's year-end show, so it would only be right if we have Eddie Mercado, the Eddie Mercado, to come on for the end of the year show. Who knows who else is going to come on? I know Farrah is going to be able to come on, and we'll see who else agrees to it. But if you guys would like to see anybody special, let me know on Twitter or here on YouTube. Wherever you listen to the show, let me know in the comments below, and I would love to reach out and get one of your favorite MMA media members on. MMA Holes had a great year this year. Kobe's Corner, great year this year, so big applause to them as well. But you know what? You guys are probably here for UFC 219. Let's look into the card. Now, officially, this is the card that we have set up for tonight. It's Holly Holm versus Chris Cyborg in the main event. In the co-main event, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Edson Barboza. That's a scary fight. I mean, Ted said it himself on the Christmas episode. He was like, Khabib, it seems like he's looking forward past Edson Barboza, and that really is a kiss of death. In Ted's words, that's a kiss of death right there. You never want to overlook your opponent. Look what happened to Ronda Rousey. I know I keep using it over and over again, but Holly Holm fighting tonight, she's the perfect example of this. Holly Holm came out of nowhere, matched up against Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey just beat Bethe Correia, and I thought it was very soon for them to announce Holly Holm. And here it is, Khabib. He's been out of the octagon for a year now. He does have that win over Michael Johnson, amazing win, but what happened on the feet with Edson Barboza with Michael Johnson when it came down to Khabib? There were a couple really scary moments in that fight where I got so scared for Khabib. I was at the edge of my seat, biting my fingers. I was like, there's no way. He needs to really smarten up here, use what got him to the dance, which is definitely his wrestling game, his takedowns, and that's what he went to, as I believe in round 2. But at the beginning of that fight, man, I was nervous for Khabib. And if you look at the striking abilities of Michael Johnson, he has great stand-up, but let's look at Edson Barboza, on the other hand, who just, if he pulls the trigger at the right second, look what he did to Beneil Dariush. But Edson Barboza, man, he can really throw a wrench in the works to Khabib Nurmagomedov, because the big fight that we all want to see, obviously, is Khabib versus Tony Ferguson, who right now, Tony Ferguson is the guy who's holding the interim title. Now in 2018, who knows what's going to happen there, but we really need to figure out tonight what's going to be the moving point from this point forward. We all really want, at least me, for myself. I mean, we've tried to set this up how many times now? 3 times to try to get Tony Ferguson to fight Khabib, and it's fallen through every time. Well, this time Khabib shows up. He's like, you know what? I want that title shot. There was no drama at all when it came to the weight cut. He made weight. He came in, I believe, at 155.5 pounds. So he went through a great weight cut, and no one had to worry about the tiramisu or any of that BS. So it's looking close, though, as I'm looking towards Tapology. You know what, matter of fact, let's go to Tapology.com and let's look at what you guys are thinking for this co-main event. And there's a lot of fights on this card. Let me mention this first. There was a lot of fights on this card that got pulled off. Jimmy Rivera, he came on the Pure Evil MMA earlier on in the year, or a couple of weeks ago, and he was supposed to be matched up with Dominic Cruz in this fight. That was supposed to be an amazing fight. He could have been next contender to fight TJ Dillashaw next. And according to Jimmy, they've sparred before in the past, and make what you will of it, but Jimmy says he got the better hand over TJ Dillashaw. Now, that was 2 years ago, going on 3. What would be different now? But Jimmy Rivera, man, he had a great fight against Thomas Almeida this year that I'm going to be bringing up in the end of the year show. But Jimmy Rivera versus Thomas Almeida was one of the best fights of 2017. I think a lot of people out there forgot about. And he was supposed to be on tonight's card. They rematched him against John Lineker since Dominic Cruz fell out, but then Lineker had some sort of tooth problem. Something happened. He got pulled out last minute. So Jimmy Rivera not able to get an opponent for UFC 219. Also on this card that got pulled off, Gokhan Saki versus Khalil Roundtree was supposed to go down, but that fight got pulled off. That was another really nice fight that we had to look forward to as the end of the year. But still a pretty solid card here for UFC 219. Other than the co-main event, you have Dan Hurker versus DeCasey. You also have Carla Esparza versus Cynthia Calvillo. Now, Cynthia Calvillo had a very good 2017. Carla Esparza, on the other hand, the only other really opponent right now besides Tisha Torres that has a win over Rose Namajunas. So keep that in mind. So if Carla Esparza wins, maybe she can call out. I mean, she is going to be going up against the young gun, but we'll look at the odds in a second. I believe Carla Esparza is probably the underdog here. Cynthia's had a great run so far in 2017. And then we get to look forward to the official return of the natural born killer, which is Carlos Condit. So he's going to get a matchup from hell as he faces Neil Magny tonight. So let's take a look at what you guys are thinking on Tapology for our co-main event. All right, so it looks like Barboza is a plus 245 moderate underdog, and Khabib at -1 or -285, matter of fact. But if you're looking back at the last couple of fights that Barboza had, I mean, his last loss was to Tony Ferguson. This is a tough one for Khabib, man, because if you look back at Beneil Dariush's fight against Edson Barboza, he was able to time it perfectly where Beneil Dariush kept looking for that takedown and he would do the same repetitive things over and over again, and then Edson just caught him with a perfectly timed knee that just dropped Beneil Dariush, and it would be hard, but I can see Edson catching Khabib, but I don't think he's going to catch him with any spin kicks or anything like that, because he's going to be able to give his back up if he tries anything like that, and you cannot be making any slip-ups when it comes to Khabib, because once he gets you to the ground, it's not going to be fun. 79% of you are going with Khabib Nurmagomedov, mostly by decision. And then 21% of you guys are going with Edson Barboza. So also on this card, there's a lot of fights on this card that not many people I've seen really talk about that. And that might be the UFC's fault. I mean, I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen a lot of push from the UFC. I mean, it's the end of the year fight, the last fight of 2017. It's a pay-per-view event, and you got two huge headline stars. I mean, who in the world doesn't know who Holly Holm is? And it's a shame if anybody doesn't know who Chris Cyborg is. And even the co-main event, you have Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the biggest stars in Russia. I mean, they have a huge chance here, and I did not think that they did enough promoting UFC 219. I'm not wrong here. UFC 219 doesn't seem anything like last year's end of the year event, which was Ronda Rousey versus Amanda Nunes. Now, Chris Cyborg, how can you even compare the two at this point? I mean, looking back, we were all kind of tricked to think Ronda Rousey is one of the best, and let me straighten something out. Ronda Rousey really is one of the best, one of the top 5 in the world, in my opinion. You can disagree highly with me, but when you have Cyborg versus Holly Holm, I mean, that's an even bigger fight in my eyes. But the UFC didn't push that on the audience, and I don't know what the numbers are going to be as we close out this year, but shame on them for a lot of people missing out on a lot of these underdog fights like Mark DeCasey versus Hooker. I mean, Hooker, he's kind of been hot and cold. DeCasey on his last fight, he was zooming in 2017 early on in the year. When he had that win over Pekelin in the first round, I think it was like in the first minute. He had that win over Frankie Perez. I mean, he had a nice little win streak going on. And then in his last fight, he got up against Jakar Close, and Jakar Close just shut DeCasey down. So this is interesting here. I mean, both these guys are very hungry. They're both very dangerous fighters. Mark DeCasey is so hungry, man. He wants to go in there. He's been training at American Top Team next to Pickett for a little while. He's been training with Boston Strong Rosa. I mean, he's training down there at American Top Team. So he's getting all the information that he needs, and he's trying to grow as a fighter. And I think he learned a lot in his last fight, because he really went on there trying to put on another great performance. But what it comes down to is you just need to win. I mean, you got that amazing performance, and you're not going to be able to search for it and try to pull the trigger, because most of the time that's not going to happen. It has to fluently come like it did in that last fight that you had. And if you're trying to go in there and you're just hunting it down, looking for it, most likely not going to happen. So I think we're going to see a smarter game plan out of Mark DeCasey. But Daniel Hooker, man, he is no joke either. I mean, like I said, he's win-loss, but he has that last win over Ross Pearson just 6 months ago. Brutal knee that ended Ross Pearson. But he also had that decision loss against Jason Knight. But right now, Mark DeCasey is the moderate favorite at -195. I don't know if I'd be putting money on this, though. This is a very close fight that can go either way. I'm going with Mark DeCasey on this fight. And for our co-main event, guys, I'm going with Khabib Nurmagomedov. Most likely to win this by submission. I'm guessing in probably the second round. So this next fight is very interesting. You got Carla Esparza, the former champion, the Cookie Monster. Has amazing wrestling skills, and she's still at the top of the division. I believe she's still ranked at one of the top 5 in that weight division. And she's going up against the young and hungry, undefeated Cynthia Calvillo. And this is a very scary fight because Carla Esparza is going to be one of the toughest matchups for Cynthia. I mean, Carla Esparza going in there, like I said, has one of the only wins over Rose Namajunas. But Cynthia's footwork, I think that's something that's going to be really big tonight. Cynthia going into this fight, I mean, she's had 3 fights inside the UFC. She had that win over Amanda Bobby Cooper where she won by rear naked choke. And then she had a win over Pearl Gonzalez via rear naked choke. And then that decision win over JoJo Calderwood. Now, to me, I thought that fight was very close against JoJo. I even scored that fight for JoJo. I mean, some people might disagree. You could say that her kicks were kind of like an Elias kind of kick where it's really just tapping and kind of a points scoring. But in my opinion, I think that she landed a lot of strikes, and I think Cynthia got outstruck. But Cynthia did have some of the more dominant moments in that fight. So with that being said, going up against Carla Esparza, who's specifically a wrestler, I'm interested to see how this plays out. I am leaning towards the young gun, but it's going to be a tough fight, most likely to end by decision. Let me know what you guys are thinking about this, but let's look on Tapology. The moderate underdog is Carla Esparza, who really is win-loss, win-loss. I mean, her last 5 fights, we got a win over Rose Namajunas 3 years ago, a loss to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, we all remember that one. That's where she lost the belt. Then she had a win over Juliana Lima. She won that by a decision. Then she lost to Randa Marcos about 10 months ago. Then she has a win 6 months ago, Morose. 81% of you guys are agreeing with me, though. Going for Cynthia Calvillo to win this by decision, too. A lot of you guys in there by decision. A lonely 19% of you guys out there are thinking that Carla Esparza can get it done. And I agree with you. Carla Esparza can get it done. This is one of the toughest opponents of Cynthia. But just moving into 2018, I think it would be a beautiful thing to see this girl blossom into a really strong contender in the strawweight division. So let's see what happens here. As for Carla Esparza being ranked, she is ranked 7th, and Cynthia Calvillo currently is ranked 9th. Let me know what you guys are voting for on Twitter at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. So the very first fight that's going to kick our main card off is the return of the Natural Born Killer. And I mean, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but really, I'm excited as hell about this. And Neil Magny, he's coming off a loss over Rafael Dos Anjos, RDA. And this is an exciting fight. I mean, it seems like Carlos Condit has kind of had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, since he's been away, there has been breaking news that he opened up a coffee shop and that he's been doing this and doing that. And when he lost to Robbie Lawler to kick off, 2016? Was that to kick off? 2016. We saw Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit. That was one of the best fights of the year. And it was the first fight of 2016. Well, the first main headline card. And we remember that symbolic picture of Carlos Condit just kind of laying over the cage and Robbie Lawler doing the same thing. Really gave it all that he had. And in that moment, since he lost, I kind of felt just like this dump of, man, can I really go through this again? Can I go through these battles again? If I didn't beat Robbie, I mean, how can I, keep aging and keep improving? I mean, this was my time. This is when I wanted it, but it didn't happen. Didn't happen for it. So you even saw in the post-fight press conference, he was just kind of second guessing if fighting is what he wanted to do. So he left for a little while. He came back. He fought Damian Maia, and he was all pumped up to fight Damian Maia. And then what happens there? He gets choked out in a matter of seconds. So then he's even more deflated at that point. So now he's been away, and end the year 2017. He's making a return since a year away from the octagon. And Neil Magny needs a win really bad. He's really hungry, coming off that loss to RDA. Before that, Neil Magny had that win over Johnny Hendricks. I mean, the former champion. And years ago, you even saw Neil Magny call out Johnny Hendricks, like according to Brendan Schaub, there was like an after party or something like that, and Brendan was with Neil Magny. And Neil saw Johnny Hendricks approach them, and he was kind of, looking him head to toe. He was like, you know what? I can beat this guy. So that must have been a huge boost in confidence after he beat Johnny Hendricks, and then he loses to RDA. But RDA at this weight class has just been looking like an unstoppable force. He's blown through Neil Magny in the first round, and then he's blown through Robbie Lawler. 5 rounds, all 5 rounds scored for RDA, and he just looks unstoppable at this point. So this is interesting. The winner of this fight, you could say maybe could fight RDA again next, but that's really only if Carlos Condit wins. I would like to see that happen, but odds are that probably won't happen. There's a lot of other contenders in the weight division that I would love to see RDA fight, and you guys would probably agree with that. But this win is very important for both guys. I mean, Neil Magny going on a 2-fight losing streak just to end 2017 would just be awful. And Carlos Condit, three losses in a row. I mean, that's usually when fighters do get the pink slip, might go to Bellator or something like that. And I would hate to see Carlos Condit leave MMA in general, but who knows? Another loss on Carlos Condit's career. Could he take another loss and, not just want to leave for good? He already has plan B in order. I mean, he has a 30-10 record. That's 40 fights in his professional career. So I'm rooting for Carlos Condit tonight. I hope that he wins. Let's see what you guys are saying on Tapology. 82% of you are going with Carlos Condit to win, and a good 55% of the 82% is going by KO. I would love to see that happen. Last time Carlos Condit had a win was against Thiago Alves. That was 2 years and 6 months ago, guys. So I don't know. I'd love to see him win, but Neil Magny, that's a tough fight for anybody. Neil Magny, in his last 5 fights, he's 3-2. He has wins over Kelvin Gastelum. He has wins over Hector Lombard. And he has a win over Johnny Hendricks. Those are 3 top opponents here. If he wins, it's going to be another huge mark under his bat. If he beats Carlos Condit, that's huge. But I am rooting for Carlos Condit. I hope Carlos Condit wins. I'm going Carlos Condit winning by KO in the 3rd round. How about that? So we're going to be getting to the main event in a second, but really quick, just a quick shout out to the rest of the guys on this card. Our buddy Rick Glenn obviously is fighting on this card, and there's 2 Pure Evil MMA listeners out there who are wearing Rick Glenn's t-shirt from this year's giveaway. So in 2017, we got to thank Rick Glenn for participating in Pure Evil MMA, and he is going to be fighting Miles Jury. That's going to be a really tough fight. Miles Jury coming off a win over Mike Della Torre via ground and pound. That was just about 8 months ago. But you know what? Rick Glenn, former champion over at World Series of Fighting, he's on a 2-fight winning streak. He beat Philip Nover, who I've also interviewed in the past, and Gavin Tucker just 3 months ago. So with a 20-4 record, I'm going with Rick Glenn to win. And I'd probably say I would love to see him win by knockout, but I'm guessing this is probably going to go to a decision. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. Also, Khalil Roundtree is going to be going up against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Now, this is a fight I really wanted to see before Mikhail stepped in, because it was supposed to be Gokhan Saki, and Gokhan Saki had definitely, without a doubt, one of the best knockouts in 2017, where he just slings it from the side like he's throwing a baseball pitch. So make sure to look forward to that at the end of the year show for 2017. And guys, just one more time, let me know if there's anyone out there that you want to hear on our end of the year show here at Pure Evil MMA. And I want to give a huge thanks to everybody that voted for us. Pure Evil MMA was nominated not once this year, but twice by the MMA community. We were nominated for MMA Podcast News Podcast of the Year by MMAnews.com. Over 100 people out there voted for us. You have until the 31st, so tomorrow, to get your votes in at mymmanews.com. And also, MMA Gorilla nominated us against Kaposa, against Izzy, against MMA Ghost, MMA GIF. So just to be nominated among some of the most elite Twitter people out there is just a huge honor for me. So thank you so much just to be nominated for that. I got to give you thanks. But you guys can get your vote in by tagging MMA Gorilla on the tag on my Twitter page. It's not that hard to find, guys. You can see it. I'll even go pin it for you guys so you can see it. And also, mymmanews.com. Go vote. It's pinned at the top of the page there. So moving forward, there are one more fight on this card besides Khalil Roundtree, who I believe is going to get the knockout probably in the 1st round. If he doesn't, might go to decision. But I'm going with Khalil Roundtree to get that win. Also on this card, Luis Samoka versus Matthias Nicolou. That's going to be an exciting fight. And Smoke had kind of a rough 2017. He's on a 3-fight skid. He had that loss to Brendan Moreno, who started picking up some steam in 2017, but then lost it when he had that most recent loss, I believe, to I can't remember who he lost against. Was it John Dodson? I forgot. But he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Ray Borg and then Tim Elliott. So Luis Smoka really needs a win, and he definitely needs it bad, or he might get the pink slip. 4 losses in the UFC is not good, and he was 11-1 before these 3 losses even went down. So Nicolou, he's on a 2-fight win streak. Both those 2 wins inside the UFC. So we'll see what happens. Former Ultimate Fighter. And then the very last card on here, and I'm so happy that it went down, is Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott was so upset because he had a fight on the last card and it fell through last second. He was super pissed about it. So they get him a last minute replacement against Mark De La Rosa, who's undefeated 9-0. Tim Elliott is hot and cold ever since returning to the ever since returning to the UFC for the second time after being on that season Ultimate Fighter, fighting Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. He's been hot and cold once again. So I'm a big fan of Tim Elliott. I love his personality. He's a great presence in the UFC. I would love to see him get a win, especially since it's kind of been all crazy and scrambled up for him. He's taking this on late notice. And let me mention something, because Owale Bamboje messaged me because I brought this up about fighting last minute opponents, that it could be really risky. And I was specifically talking about Jimmy Rivera. You know, he was on UFC 219 originally matched up against Dominic Cruz, and he was really upset that Dominic Cruz ended up breaking his arm and wasn't able to fight. So then John Lineker steps up, and John Lineker gets pulled out. So at this point, Jimmy was really upset going through the holidays. I mean, you miss Thanksgiving, you miss Christmas, you're watching everybody eat all this food, and you're still trying to stay ready, and then you find out your opponent is taken off the card not once but twice. It can just mess with you. So trying to get that fight really bad can make you really anxious and throw you off, because you're not 100% prepared to fight your opponent. And that's something I said to Jimmy. I want to see you at 100%. I want to see your opponent at 100%, because this is a very important fight for you. The winner of this will be fighting TJ Dillashaw next for the championship fight. And yeah, it sucks. We wanted to see you on the end of the year. Both your opponents fell through. It sucks, man, but don't take a risk. Not at this point in your career. You're on like a 24-fight win streak right now. You've beaten Uriah Faber. You had one of the best fights of the year against Thomas Almeida. And Holy War Angel Owale Bamboje, which I broke in the last episode, ended up retiring from the UFC. And he had a couple of choice words for the UFC. You can check it out on his Twitter page. Maybe he's taken it down, but he messaged me on Instagram to my comment to Jimmy, and here's what he said. Fighting injured last-minute fights and fighting all the time away all adds up and will eventually burn a motherfucker out. I see now why fighters take smart fights. Having the right manager helps, and landing good deals also. There's a lot in the business of fighting that also has to do with outside of fighting, like a good manager, like Owale Bamboje says here. So, trying to get that last-minute fight, it's not the smart idea, especially when you're at this point in the division. And we've seen what happened to Bilal Muhammad when he wanted that fight for UFC 205 last year, going on in November. He did not care. He got matched up with Vicente Luque, and he gets brutally knocked out, and it just wasn't pretty. And I don't want to see that happen to any fighter. I want to see you at 100%. So, give or take, I am happy that Jimmy's not on this card, because of the way that things did deal out. I wouldn't want to see him fight anyone last moment just to say that he fought on the card. That fight will happen, I'm sure, in 2018 moving forward. Jimmy Rivera, keep your head up, buddy. But let's get into our main event, guys. Cris Cyborg, who's just been unstoppable. She has literally looked unstoppable throughout her entire career. I mean, she made one of the biggest entrances in MMA when she really got the most credit when she beat Gina Carano, and there was like a half a second left in the round. She was just beating down on her, and then the ref steps in right when the bell goes off. So after that moment, everybody has just been looking at this girl. Is she going to fight Ronda? The whole career, UFC's kind of kept Cris Cyborg at bay. It's kind of a shame that Cyborg wasn't in the UFC and that none of this didn't happen sooner, but things happen for a reason. Finally, she has a division to call her own at 145 pounds, but there's no one else in there. We saw her fight. A lot of you guys are calling them cans, but Lena Landsberg, she's a tough girl. She was taking a lot of punishment from Cris Cyborg, the elbow queen, the elbow princess. Also, Tanya Evinger in the last fight. But like DC says, Tanya Evinger is no Holly Holm. I agree with that to a certain extent, but I'm not going to shame Tanya Evinger because she really proved how tough she is in that fight. I believe that she stepped up for that fight. What didn't Cyborg's original opponent pull out or something crazy like that? I forgot exactly what happened, but Tanya Evinger, maybe she's not a Holly Holm, but Holly Holm also went on a 3-fight losing streak. Chris Cyborg is a tough girl who's going to constantly push forward. Holly Holm likes to move forward a lot with her combos and walk her opponents down. I don't think she's going to be able to do that with Chris Cyborg, but it would be smart to keep Chris at a distance. We've seen Cyborg in her career really face a lot of struggles with Muay Thai fighters, especially Jarina Bars. If you guys go back and look at the Muay Thai fights, now this is also a fight where she was stepping outside of her sandbox. I said it once again. She's stepping outside of her sandbox where she's not really comfortable trying out a new sport. She's trying out Muay Thai, and she's facing one of the best strikers on the planet, one of the best female strikers on the planet, which relies on Jarina Bars, who is currently fighting for Bellator Kickboxing. But she has a very similar style that Holly Holm has, where if she can keep Cyborg out on her reach and use her up kicks and really take advantage of the pressure and try to stay on the outside, and Holly Holm is very smart, where she really sets her opponents up. We can see it in that Betch Kohea fight, where she kept setting Betch up with that low kick, and Betch just kind of leaned into that kick and gets dropped. There's just a beauty and an art that goes into what Holly Holm does, mapping out her opponents. And Chris Cyborg, you can say that this is her toughest opponent yet inside the octagon, because her last few opponents, her first fight with Leslie Smith, knocks her out. Second fight, goes in there, knocks her opponent out. Third fight, knocks her opponent out. This fight, I would not be surprised if it's able to be dragged out into the later rounds. Holly Holm always looks better in the fourth or fifth, but we're going to learn a lot in that very first round, how these fighters are going to react to one another. Is Holly Holm going to kind of bow down like Derek Brunson did against Anderson Silva, where she's just afraid of what Chris Cyborg has to bring? Because you could say that she was afraid of Ronda Rousey, but was she afraid of Ronda Rousey? She had the perfect game plan there. When Ronda Rousey would charge forward, she would move like a bull and then Mascador, or whatever the person is that holds the little red cape. But this is going to be a great fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ends early on. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Holly's able to get it out to a decision and just kind of work out Chris Cyborg. But we also saw a smarter Chris Cyborg in the last fight. Everyone was going in there really rooting for her to just get an immediate knockout, just a brutal knockout. But we saw a smarter Chris Cyborg where she was able to really reserve a lot of her energy. I mean, she got taken down by Tanya Evinger early on in that fight. A lot of people forget. I mean, Tanya didn't do that bad of a job, but Holly Holm, we've seen struggle before in the past with grapplers. Cyborg has skill on the ground, believe it or not. You may not believe it. She's more than just a striker, guys. Holly Holm, she struggled when Miesha Tate just kept pushing forward, putting that pressure on. She eventually broke. Chris Cyborg's that same fighter. She's going to pour on 10 times more than what Miesha Tate was. And when she strikes with force, ferocity. So all of my senses are going with Chris Cyborg on this. If Holly Holm does win, it's going to be the biggest win of her career. I mean, what can you do next? What's going to be able to motivate you after you beat somebody like Chris Cyborg? And seriously, if the vice versa, if Chris Cyborg beats Holly Holm, who else is out there for Chris Cyborg? Well, wait. I'll name one, and it can go both ways. For whoever wins this fight, I would love to see fight Amanda Nunes. Is that not the next fight that everybody wants to see? Who else out there? I mean, you could say Megan Anderson, who is fighting in Invicta, but I don't know if she's ready for that yet. I would like to see Megan get brought in properly and be brought up, introduce her to the fans, because she's a great fighter, and she's also great with talking with people online and talking with her fans, and she's a great media person. So don't just throw her to the wolves like they kind of did with Justin Gaethje. I mean they did and they didn't with Justin Gaethje. He just has a crazy fighting style, but at the end of the day, you need somebody that's going to go in there and not just fight, but perform outside of the cage. You need both of that there. So that's what she brings to the table. All right, guys. So let me know what you think about this. Is it Holly or is it Chris Cyborg? Let's see what you think on Tapology, and let's see the official odds as we close out for tonight. All right. So at a plus 285, Holly Holm is right now moderate underdog, and Chris Cyborg is a negative 375 moderate favorite. I am going with Chris Cyborg to win by knockout in the second round That's it. Cyborg knockout second round. What do you guys think? Let me know on Twitter. And guys, if you're a part of the Pure Evil MMA Army, make sure you guys get your UFC Pick'em winners in, and you can count on the recap show directly after UFC 219 goes down. So good luck to everybody. This is the last recording of a preview show we're going to be doing for 2017 because it is the last fight card. So the next show that you guys can really count on is the recap show and also the end of the year show. I'm going to be mailing a couple of things out to some of our listeners that I said I would mail out over Christmas and New Year's. Specifically Pat, Leslie, Yusuf, I sent you a shirt. There's a lot of you guys out there. Ann and Mike, congratulations on your anniversary. Andreas, thank God you're okay, man, and I hope that you can watch the fights tonight with us and enjoy UFC 219. For the rest of everybody that tuned in to 2017's Pure Evil MMA, I appreciate it so much. If this is your first time, make sure to subscribe down below because we do this show every UFC event. And also Bellator had a great year as well, so I'm looking forward to 2018's Bellator roster because we got that Grand Prix coming up. And also it's coming to Connecticut, and I'm trying to get my credentials in. I just sent them in to Bellator to go see Roy Nelson versus Matt Mitrione. That's going to be an exciting fight. Also, we have Chael Sonnen. There's Rampage Jackson. There are so many great fights in Bellator. They really built their roster up this year, so we have a great 2018 to look forward to. And I have a lot of special shows set up. And I love the new webcam. I'm loving the new microphone. So we got some great things to look forward to here. Guys, have a great night. Drive safe, because if you're here on the East Coast, it's snowing outside, believe it or not. So drive safe tonight. And most of all, behave yourselves.